The people most obsessed with losing weight fast tend to be the ones who get the slowest results. Why? Well, because they skip the foundations, they don't build systems, and they're always chasing that new shortcut. Once upon a time, I got my heart broken by a girl, and I thought if I got in shape, I could win her back. So I went as hard as I could, as fast as I could. But all that happened was I kept falling off my diet, and eventually I got injured. So I took a step back and slowed down. I built simple, sustainable habits and really focused on fixing my routine. And sure enough, within just 4 months, I dropped 50 pounds. And the lesson from all of this, sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. Because as Warren Buffett famously said, you can't have a baby in a month by getting 9 women pregnant. Great feats take time, but that's exactly why so few men actually achieve them. That's the first of 6 mistakes that I made on my way to losing 50 pounds. And sure, I lost the weight fast, but truth be told, I wouldn't wish my experience on my worst enemy. Today, I'm going to tell you about the other 5 mistakes I made so that you can skip them and lose weight faster, all without having to give up your favorite food or waste hours at the gym. This is going to save you from all the pain, suffering, and tears. Yes, there were tears that I went through. The second mistake that I made was all to do with my diet, because when I first started learning about nutrition, I got everything wrong. I thought the secret to losing weight was eating nothing but clean foods like chicken, rice, and broccoli. But here's what actually happened. I'd eat those boring meals, feel miserable, and then by midweek, I'd snap. I'd raid the cupboards for chocolate, cookies, whatever I could find. Then I'd feel guilty and promise myself I'd start again on Monday. Sound familiar? The truth is, it's not about eating perfectly. Sure, the quality of your calories do matter. In fact, I just did a video all about that. But before we worry about the quality of the food that you're eating, we need to make sure that you're eating the right amount. So let's break this down. Your body needs energy to survive, and it gets that energy from food. When you eat more energy than your body needs, more calories, you put yourself into a surplus, and that's when you're going to gain weight. But when you eat less, you put yourself into a deficit, and that's when you're going to lose weight. It's the whole calories in, calories out, which I'm sure you've heard before, and it's pretty simple, right? But here's where most people mess up. They don't really know how much energy their body actually needs. That's where maintenance calories come in. Think of it like your budget. Your body burns a certain number of calories every day just to keep you alive. Basic functions that we kind of take for granted, like breathing, digesting, and even sleeping. When you add how active you are on top of that, you get your maintenance calories. Now, the quickest way to calculate your maintenance calorie number is to take your body weight in pounds and multiply it by 14. So let's say, for example, that you weigh, 200 pounds. You take 200 and you would multiply it by 14, which would give you 2,800. But if you want to burn a few pounds, you need to eat less than that every day to create the deficit. Now, a lot of people like to aim for a 500 calorie deficit every day because that adds up to a 3,500 calorie deficit each week. And that's how many calories are in 1 pound of fat. So using the same example, all we would do is subtract 500 from 2,800, which would give us a daily calorie target of 2,300. And if you weigh 200 pounds and you stick to that each day for a week, you'd burn a pound of fat. But that's just theory, and real life is never that simple. You never quite know when you're going to have a bad day. So you don't really want to take a robotic approach. Instead of stressing out over hitting your calorie number every single day, I'd recommend that you think weekly. All you do is take your daily target. So in this example, it's 2,300 and we multiply it by 7. So that would be 16,100. By the way, I have got the maths written down on my laptop here. I'm not some kind of like Ray Man or something. And the power of this is that now you can have low calorie days when things are going well, when you're not stressed out or tired or too busy. But it also means you've budgeted in high calorie days for weekends, meals out, beers with the boys, whatever it might be. Think of it like a savings account for your food. And when you look at it this way, and this is exactly how I coach my clients, eating becomes a lot less stressful and a lot less restrictive because now you've got room for your favorite meals and you're not going to feel like a failure if you mess up on one day. And honestly, this simple shift alone can have a profound effect. But listen, I know I just threw a load of numbers at you and you might be more confused now than when you started the video. So if you want to save yourself the time and the hassle of calculating your own calories, you can just click the link in the description underneath this video and use my free calorie calculator. And I'll give you a precise target that's unique to you so that you can start burning fat today without having to second guess whether what you're doing is actually right. All right, mistake number 3. I didn't know that protein helps you burn fat until I was 31. I just figured that it was for the bodybuilder type guys who wanted like the massive muscles. And at the time, that wasn't what I was going for. So I just didn't really bother with it. But the thing was, I was always hungry. No matter what I ate, cereal, sandwiches, even like big bowls of pasta, I'd always find myself back in the kitchen like an hour later, feeling absolutely ravenous. It was almost like the harder I tried, the harder it pushed back against me. And you're probably thinking, well, of course you were hungry, you were trying to lose weight, but it really doesn't have to be that way. And this is exactly what I discovered when I started to research on protein. You see, protein really helps to stabilize your blood sugar levels, which is controlled by two hormones, insulin and glucagon. And also, it helps to bring your hunger hormones back into balance, which are called leptin and ghrelin. So as a result of all of this, it kind of dulls your cravings for sweet treats, chocolates or cookies or whatever else it might be. But at the same time, it helps to keep you full because protein is the hardest of the three macronutrients out of protein, carbs, and fat for your body to digest, break down, and process. So as a result, it like physically sits in your stomach for longer. So when that happens, it actually expands the walls of your stomach. And when that happens, it sends a signal up to your brain telling it that you are full. So that's when it brings your ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone, down to a normal level. And this was a light bulb moment for me. Actually, it was more of like a slap in the face moment, to be honest with you, because I'd been eating protein all along. I'd just never been having enough of it. But then I started prioritizing protein at every meal. And honestly, this was game changing for me. And the cool thing is that it's not just about hunger or calories. Protein helps you with everything. I often get asked, Doug, how do you have such good skin? Are you like 13 years old? No, I'm 37 years old. But yeah, protein helps with your skin, your nails, although I bite my nails, so it doesn't really help me with my nails, but it can help you with your nails, your hair, even your immune system. On a scientific level, protein is the foundation that your body uses to build but also to repair itself. So as a start point, I'd recommend that you aim for about 100 grams of protein a day. Now, I fully appreciate that might sound like a lot at the beginning, but honestly, if you start to focus on it and spread it out throughout the day, it's perfectly manageable. I'll tell you what I'll do actually. I'll put my protein cheat sheet, which is one of the resources my clients get access to when they join my coaching program, on the screen right now. So if you want to pause the video and screenshot this right now, go ahead. As you can see, it gives you the best quality sources of protein that you can get. But underneath that, it also gives you my top 20 high protein hacks. Now, I can't promise you that all of these are going to be available in the country that you live in. But if you live in the UK or the US or Australia or Canada or somewhere like that, you should be able to find, I would say, at least half of them. But what I would also say is use this list as inspiration. So even if you can't get the specific hack, snack that I'm talking about, you can probably find something that's a pretty good substitute for it. The coolest thing about all of these protein hacks is that they're quick and simple, but they're going to make a huge difference to your fat loss journey. One of my clients, Mike, he really struggled with like constant cravings. So we very purposely worked together and started trying to make sure he was adding protein to every single one of his meals. And honestly, it was like someone like flicked a switch. He finally stopped reaching for snacks at night. And I think the most important thing was he felt like he was in control of his health and his appetite. And the best part is protein doesn't have to be boring. There's plenty of protein sources, including a lot of the ones on the list that I just gave you, that taste amazing. I mean, just to give you a little bit of context as to how important protein is and why I'm banging on about it for so long. The word protein actually originates from the ancient Greek word protos, which means first. But yeah, with this one very simple change, you're gonna feel fuller, you're gonna have more energy, and I can literally guarantee you it's gonna make it so much easier for you to hit your goals. Before we get into talking about point number 4, if you're enjoying the video, I'd really appreciate if you could do me a tiny favor and just click the subscribe button that should be like around here, like underneath the video somewhere. It really helps the channel to grow, but more importantly, it helps my message to be able to reach more men. Mistake number 4 is all to do with fiber. I'll admit it, I'm not ashamed. I didn't pay much attention. Well, I didn't pay any attention to fiber when I first started working on my diet. Honestly, I thought it was for like older people and that you just needed it to like, stay regular. But the more I learned and the more I experimented, the more I realized just how powerful it is. First of all, like protein, fiber really fills you up. So do you remember earlier I was telling you about protein and how it physically sits in your stomach for longer because it's harder for your body to process it, digest it, break it down as well. Fiber is exactly the same. So it expands the walls of your stomach just like protein does, and that signal gets sent out to your brain telling it that you are full. But the difference between protein and fiber is that fiber does all of this without adding extra calories. And when you combine protein and fiber, it really is the difference between someone who's, constantly raiding the snack cupboard to someone who's more than happy with 3 square meals a day. But the other pretty unique benefit of fiber is just how amazing it is for your gut health. So most people don't realize the connection between their gut health and their mental health. You've got a hormone called serotonin. You might have heard of it. It's your feel-good, happy hormone. But what you might not know is that 90 to 95% of it is actually produced in your gut. So the healthier your gut is, the more serotonin it can produce. And the more serotonin it can produce, the easier it's going to be to stay on track with your fitness, with your diet, and just live a healthier, happier life. Now, I am not going to sit here and profess that I'm an expert on gut health. There are plenty of other YouTube channels which are far better informed than me to talk about that. However, I do understand the basics, and as someone who has suffered from quite severe mental health issues in the past, I can tell you that one of the most transformative and just simple things that you can do is add more fiber into your diet. And the final massive benefit of fiber is that it gives you steady, long-lasting energy. So if you ever feel like you're dragging your knuckles through your day, which I'm sure you know what that feels like, fiber can be a fantastic way to boost that steady, long-lasting energy. So in terms of targets, you want to aim for about 30 grams of fiber a day. And again, a little bit like protein, when you start to put a bit of focus on this and spread it out throughout the day, it really isn't that complicated. It could be adding a handful of blueberries or raspberries to your breakfast, just including more vegetables at your lunch and dinner. It sounds almost patronizing, but it's amazing how few people do it. And then thirdly, nuts. Absolutely fantastic. Obviously, unless you're allergic to them, then they're not great. But assuming you're not allergic to the nuts, yeah, fantastic source of fiber. Mistake number 5 is probably the dumbest of them all. Because if someone told you about a drink that could kill your cravings, boost your energy, and clear your brain fog without any caffeine or sugar or a high price tag, you'd probably think it's too good to be true. But not only is it real, it's also free, and I even expect it's right in front of you. So, what's the drink? Well, hopefully you've guessed it by now, but in case you haven't, it's water. Now, I'm 100% sure that I'm not the first man in the world to tell you that drinking more water is good for you. But a lot of people still seem to struggle with it, and I think that's for 2 reasons. One is pretty simple. I think just like protein and fiber, they're just not focused on it. But the second reason is why they're not focused on it. And that's because everybody's told them to drink more water, but no one's actually taken the time to tell them why it's beneficial. But water, this good stuff, is like your body's secondary energy system. Let me put this down for a second. You see, think of your food, your calories, as like the petrol that you put in your car to get it moving. But think of the water that you drink like the oil you put in the car to make sure that it doesn't break down. To put it another way, every single cell in your body needs water to function correctly. That's how important it is. And dehydration can cause massive problems. It affects your energy levels, your mental clarity, and it even makes it harder for you to stick to your diet. And you might be thinking, okay, yeah, get all that, but I'm not dehydrated. Well, most people don't realize how sensitive our brains are to dehydration, because it only actually takes you to be 1 to 2% dehydrated for your brain to start shutting down non-essential processes in your body. And what that looks like in real life is essentially you feel more lethargic. So when you feel lethargic, the chances are you're going to do less. You have less drive, less kind of get up and go. And this is when it becomes far more tempting to sit on the sofa and have an 8-hour Netflix binge. But obviously when you do that, as great as it is on a Sunday sometimes, it means you're going to do less. And when you do less, you're going to burn less calories, right? And when you're burning less calories, it's going to be pretty hard for you to create that deficit and lose the body fat. But in contrast to that, if you keep yourself hydrated, you're going to have all day energy, mental focus, clarity, and probably, I think the most important of all, drive. The drive to get up and actually want to do the hard things. So your next question might be, okay, Doug, I get it. how much water should I be drinking then? Well, the answer that I give most people, it might sound a little bit blunt, I guess, but it's more. I give that answer because I know that most people just aren't drinking enough of it, and there isn't really an upper limit to the amount of water that's safe to drink. As soon as I said that, I thought, oh my God, there's definitely going to be someone in the comments now who goes, oh, 3 people a year die from drinking too much water. Okay, don't drink any water then, see what happens. But if you want a more precise answer, then I'd say that about 3 liters of water a day is a pretty realistic target for most people to aim for that's going to keep them hydrated. Now, the one exception to that is if you live in a particularly hot or humid climate like the Middle East, or even where I am in Southern Europe. I'm down in southern Spain, certain parts of the US, South America, places like that. But if you live in Northern America or, the UK or Canada, I'm just naming countries now. I mean, to an extent, you have to use a bit of common sense here, but I would say as a barometer, aim for 3 liters a day. And again, 3 liters, you might be like, Doug, I drink 1 liter. That's 3 times the amount. How am I going to do that? Listen, I get it. But again, with all of this stuff, it's about where you put your focus, where you put your energy. And honestly, if you make this stuff a habit, it doesn't take that long. It doesn't take that much time. Really isn't that hard. To give you an example of just how easy this can be if you do put your focus into it, let me explain how I drink 3 liters of water by 9 a.m. every day. So I wake up at 6 a.m. most mornings, and I will go into my kitchen, obviously, and I will drink a 500 milliliter big glass of water with an electrolyte powder. Then I will walk to the gym, which is about 20 minutes away from me at about 7 a.m. or something, with one of these, which is a big 2-liter bottle of water. Yeah, 2-liter bottle of water. And my kind of goal is on the walk to the gym, during my session, and on the walk home. So essentially by the time I'm home from the gym, to have drunk that full 2 liters. So that's 2.5 liters. And then when I get home, obviously I've got to have my protein shake, got to make those gains. So I'll have another 500 milliliters of water with my protein powder, and that'll normally be about 9 a.m. And there you have it, 3 liters of water by 9 a.m. just by putting a little bit of focus into it. It's not hard. But the point is, I'm not saying this because I'm not saying it to flex. I'm not saying it because you need to drink 3 liters of water by 9 a.m. The point of me telling you this story is that if I can do it by 9 a.m., I think you can do it by 9 p.m., right? Fair? Last, but certainly not least, mistake number 6. When I first started trying to eat healthier, I thought I could get away with eating whatever I wanted as long as it fit within my macros. Because back then, we're talking 6 years ago, if it fit your macros, I never remember the acronym. It's actually easy for me to just say if it fits your macros, was all the rage. It was all like, yeah, bro, I go out and have 10 beers and a pizza, but then I just don't eat for 3 days. That's not the most sustainable approach, is it? And I was fully invested in this, so I didn't care if I had pizza or ice cream or chips as long as it fit in my macros. But particularly after the first few weeks, I felt awful. And I was ashamed to admit it, so I hid it as much as I could because I was like, it must be me. I must be doing something wrong. But my workouts sucked. I was tired all the time, which I thought was just because I was in a calorie deficit. But worst of all, my cravings were just out of control. And part of this was because, like I said, I wasn't eating enough protein. I wasn't eating enough fiber. I certainly wasn't drinking enough water. But I think just as equally important as that was the quality of the calories that I was having. Now, I don't want to contradict myself because at the start of this video, I said the most important thing is the quantity of your calories. And that's absolutely true. But the quality is a close second, and I actually think it becomes more important as you get older. It kind of depends, but you have to have that start point. And the start point really is figuring out what your maintenance calories is, what your calorie deficit is if you want to burn the fat. But that's quite quick and easy. Once you've figured that out, once you've tracked your calories for a couple of weeks, you'll find that you're in the same pattern and routine. You eat the same food most days and weeks, apart from a few things that you change here and there. And then it very much becomes a focus on the quality of your calories. And we've touched on this because we've talked about protein, we've talked about fiber, we've talked about water. If you hit those 3, the quality of your diet is going to drastically improve. In fact, if you were to eat 100 grams of protein a day, drink 3 liters of water, and eat 30 grams of fiber a day, probably guess that you're in the top 1% of people when it comes to nutrition. In fact, no, the top 0.1 0.01% actually. But yeah, it didn't take me long to realize that not all calories are created equally. And once I swapped out the junk food for whole single ingredient foods that, aren't processed, everything started to change. You see, there's four big problems with junk and processed food. They're very addictive, they don't fill you up, they drain your energy, and they mess with your hormones. These foods are designed to be hyper palatable, so they light up the reward centers in your brain, making you kind of want more and more of them. And they don't fill you up because they got horrible macros, like almost no protein, zero fiber. They're made up of a lot of trans fats, which is like the one type of fat you really want to avoid. But I think the biggest problem when it comes to eating junk and processed food is the havoc it causes on your endocrine system, on your hormones. So I think there's two major issues. And again, this is why it becomes more important the older you get. So big issue number one is it causes a lot of problems within your gut. It causes a lot of bloating and chronic gastrointestinal inflammation. That's a mouthful. The other hormone that it causes havoc on is your cortisol, which is your stress hormone. So it spikes your cortisol, and as a result, it makes it very difficult for you to get deep REM sleep. And you know what it's like when you start getting into the realms where you've had 2-3 bad night sleeps in a row. Your hormones are doing this rather than doing this. You basically become mentally unstable, right? And try as you might, you can have all the willpower and motivation in the world. If you are not sleeping, which is the foundation of your health, you are going to find it next to impossible to stick to your calories, to get your workouts in, to even basic stuff like just drinking more water. You're just not going to be bothered. I'm not saying that you need to give up these foods for the rest of your life. That's terrible advice. In fact, the way I coach most of my clients is using the 80-20 rule. So they eat 80% of their food for function and 20% for fun, because you never want to feel like you're actually on a diet. You want to enjoy everything that you eat, because that way it makes it a lot easier to stay within your calories and ultimately hit your goal. Because again, you don't want some fad approach, which is 6 weeks to leanness, or I don't know what people are saying these days, whatever garbage they're saying. You want to build a lifestyle. You want to build something sustainable, something that essentially, once you've got into the habit of it, it just becomes an autopilot. If you are struggling with energy or mood, irritability, brain fog, mental clarity, any of these things, I'd strongly encourage you to take a 14-day break from junk food, processed food, added sugar, all of this nasty stuff. It's going to be transformative for you, trust me. And what you'll also see is just how addicted you were to all of these foods. Now, day 1 and 2, it'll be pretty easy. Day 3, you will literally start to cluck. You'll start to be going crazy. You'll have mad cravings for these foods, but push through, because once you get to day 10, day 12, and day 14, your taste buds, you can actually retrain them. And then when you go back to trying that sweet treat or whatever it might be, your guilty pleasure, you'll find that you don't enjoy it as much as you used to, and your value system will have shifted. So now you'll enjoy the fact that you wake up feeling refreshed, that you've got more energy. And again, I keep coming back to this word, drive. It's so important, particularly in guys, as we get older, where our testosterone, our sex hormone, naturally starts to decrease. We really have to pay more attention to the quality of the calories that we are eating. So yeah, if you're finding that you're having any of those problems that we went through today, strongly encourage you to give up the junk and the processed food for 14 days. See how you feel. Treat it like a little bit of a challenge. I guarantee you it's going to change your life. So those are the 6 mistakes that I made when I first started on my fitness journey, and more importantly, how you can avoid them. But I appreciate we just covered a lot. I really hope it was useful, but now you might not know where to start. The fact that you've made it to the end of this video tells me that you must be pretty serious about losing weight, burning fat, and reaching your fitness goals this year. So if you'd like my help, I'd love to take 30 seconds to explain how my brand new coaching program could be perfect for you. I built it specifically for guys who want to lose 10 to 20 pounds in the next 10 weeks and then keep it off for good. And I'm going to give you the proven system that's already helped thousands of guys over 35 to get lean, strong, and healthy without having to give up their favorite food or live in the gym. This program is going to boost your confidence, supercharge your energy levels, and I think most importantly, give you the peace of mind that you're set up to stay healthy for years to come. So if you want to find out exactly how it works, click the second link in the description underneath this video, and hopefully we'll be speaking very soon. Anyway, I'll leave the video here. I really hope you enjoyed it, but more importantly, I hope you found it useful. Until next time, cheers.